Hey Life Warrior, what if the most powerful way to cleanse your life wasn't just through rituals, but through wisdom? I want to talk today about growth through learning. Welcome back to your Monday message. I am Dharma Shakti, your host, with your weekly dose of something inspirational. Today we're going to talk about knowledge as a liberating and purifying force in your life. This comes straight from the yogic teachings. And so we're going to discuss a verse from the Bhagavad Gītā, chapter 4, verse 38, that is emphasizing how powerful knowledge is in your life and why it's so important, why it's so valuable, and how it can change the way you experience your life. So let's dive in. So again, this is a verse from the Bhagavad Gītā. The Sanskrit is Nahi jñānena sadṛśaṁ pavitram. Nothing is more purifying than knowledge. In fact, even in Prabhupada's translation of the Bhagavad Gītā, he says there's nothing as mystical or transcendental as knowledge. So let's talk about what this verse means and how it can have an impact in our lives. A real simple explanation of this verse is that true knowledge purifies what yoga calls ignorance and elevates our consciousness. Think of ignorance as not knowing or misperceiving something, taking what is false as what is true, taking what is temporary as eternal, taking what is impermanent as permanent, right? Like we have this notion that I'll be here forever. Death isn't going to happen to me. That's for other people. And this is a false idea. Thinking things like, I have forever, I have so much time to do what I want to do, and time is temporary. You're only allotted a certain amount of time. And this ignorance gives rise to our suffering. This misperception or this not knowing or this incorrect apprehension of understanding the world that we live in, the makeup of our human body, and the contents of that human body, which is the spirit soul. So, let me break down 5 key points. We're going to just make a point, why it matters, how to practice it, and how you can apply those practices in your life. So here we go. Ready? I hope you have a pen and paper. Take some notes. Number 1, knowledge removes the darkness of ignorance. If you've been to a yoga class with me or any one of the teachers at Yogalution, you might have heard this opening Sanskrit invocation, Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And in short, it means I offer my humble obeisances to the Guru, the teacher, who is removing the darkness of ignorance from my life. Okay? And so why does this matter? Ignorance clouds our perception and breeds fear. When our perception is clouded, we start to lean into that doubt, that fear, that anger, that frustration, and these are lower states of consciousness. Yoga wants to bring us up into these higher states of consciousness. Knowledge illuminates the truth with a capital T. Like, what is the real truth of the situation? What is the real truth of the circumstance? What is the real truth of who you are? So how do we practice this? You can commit to lifelong learning. So simple, right? Lifelong learning. You should always be a student. Study sacred literature and study personal development and learn new skills. Grow. Gain knowledge and then apply the knowledge and then grow from that knowledge. Really, really important. And what might this look like? Well, we can dedicate 10 minutes daily to reading or listening to something that elevates our mind. I just want to give a quick shout out to Kaustubha Prabhu from the Wisdom of the Sages. If you would like to dive into some sacred literature, you can check out the Gita Collective on Instagram and join their WhatsApp group where they are doing this every day. They'll be starting in November, daily reading of the Bhagavad Gītā. Any sacred literature applies here. Any sacred literature that you align towards, that you feel is resonates with you and a truth that you believe in, read that literature. Listen to podcasts of people who are teaching that literature. Let that wisdom and that knowledge, really it's the knowledge and the wisdom people gain from applying the knowledge, let it pour into your life. It's really powerful, okay? This is going to elevate your mind, elevate you into a higher consciousness. Not in a like floaty, ethereal way, like you're not tapped in and connected to what's happening on planet Earth. It's as you're moving through the Earth realm, you are functioning from a place of higher consciousness, not the lower conscious, which is the human self. Those parts of us that contain the not so nice sides of human nature, the lust, the anger, the greed, the jealousy, the envy, the hatred, right? All of that, those are lower states of consciousness. And the yogic path is to come up into higher states of consciousness. And knowledge, like what I just shared with you, that kind of knowledge changes the way that we move through the world. Oh, I didn't know that I could elevate to a different level of consciousness. I don't have to just choose the station that has been given to me through my upbringing, the radio station that I listen to. I don't have to function from that place. I can function from something different. This knowledge is life-changing. All right, point number 2, learning transforms not just the mind, but also the heart. Okay, this is important because true knowledge changes how you feel and how you act, and not just what you think. It softens our judgment and helps us cultivate compassion, right? Like when we understand the challenges that somebody is going through, we are a little bit more compassionate towards, their behavior or their attitude, or, where they got their prickly edges that we rub up against sometimes. When we have an understanding of what someone is going through, we're less likely to be so irritated by them. So that knowledge, that knowing of like, oh, that person is going through a really, really horrible breakup. They're like heartbroken right now and they're just grumpy, and that look on their face has nothing to do with me. That knowledge will change, right? Because if I'm just in a room with that person and they got that grumpy look on their face, for sure I'm going to be taking that personal and thinking that person doesn't like me. But when I understand, oh, that person is holding heartbreak, then it changes the way that I might interact with that person. Similarly, if we even go further beyond that, when we understand that everyone is a spirit soul who is just trying to navigate this human earth walk, we can see the spirit behind the person, when we see the soul behind the story, as Sean Corn says, it helps us to interact in a different way, in a place of a higher consciousness. We're less likely to go into those lower levels of consciousness when we can remember that person is a soul, right? That there's a spirit soul in that being. So how do we practice this concept? Well, we can reflect on how what we learn can shift how we relate to others. Right? I know for me, when I started studying yoga philosophy, this really changed for me, especially growing up in an environment, I grew up Mormon, and so in the Mormon church, I think a lot like other sort of Christian-based traditions. I'm not saying all of them, but many of them. And even other religious traditions. I'm not going to limit it to Christianity. But there is this concept that like, we have the true teachings and therefore we're the chosen people and God loves us the most. When we're functioning from this kind of knowledge, right, it doesn't help us interact with others around us that are not in our circle or in our group of chosen faith. When we have this understanding that everybody is a soul having a human experience, and although they may have a different religious tradition that they choose that's different than mine, they're also still just a soul that's trying to understand life and where we come from and the source of all those things and how to get back home to that. And so therefore I can have a deeper respect. Even though I may not agree, I can have, and sometimes I do like other people's traditions. But I may not agree with the path that they've chosen. I may not agree with the teachings of the path, but I can still see that that is a spirit soul that's just trying to figure it all out the same way that I am. So that allows me to have more empathy and more connection and more compassion rather than judgment. So how do we apply this? After you learn something from a sacred literature, or I know many of you watching come to take my yoga classes or any of our yoga teachers at Yogalution, when you learn something, maybe you hear a little piece of wisdom, maybe you hear a little like insightful, knowledgeable quote or a passage from some literature, it's important that you ask yourself, how can I embody this in my life today? right? You're hearing this here today and you're learning. And so ask yourself, how can I embody this in my life today? It's really important that we don't just consume information. Then there's a difference between information and knowledge. So we want to take knowledge and apply it. We're so inundated with consuming information. We haven't made a lot of time for integrating knowledge. So asking this question, how can I embody this in my life today, is how we start to integrate that knowledge. Okay, point number 3, wisdom leads to freedom from fear. If you want to have freedom from fear, this wisdom, the knowledge that cultivates into wisdom, the knowing, it allows us to really unhook from fear. Okay, so why is this important? Fear thrives in the unknown. Like, a lot of people are afraid of death. They're afraid of dying because they don't know what's on the other side. And I'm not saying I know, but having some conceptual idea that aligns with you can remove a lot of fear around dying. I know that, for me, I've had many personal losses of friends and family in my life, and just knowing that they're in the spirit world, that they're in their spirit form, and that I can still connect with them through their energy, through their spirit, right, has removed a lot of fear of not having their physical presence in my life. Right? So this is one way that we can apply this knowledge. Okay? Knowledge brings clarity, dissolving fear's grip. When we have more knowledge, when I believe I'm a spirit soul, I'm not, for me personally, like, I don't, this idea that, there's nothing after this life, that we're all just from the Big Bang and we're just existing. This idea scares me personally. But having the knowledge from sacred literature that I'm a spirit and I exist in the great beyond, I'm just having a temporary moment, a temporary journey and experience here on this planet Earth as a human, brings me a level of comfort that helps to dispel this fear around, I'm just here and then I'm gone and that's it. I'm just sharing personally. You may apply this in your own way, but this is what the yogic teachings teach us. Why understanding the nature of who you are is important. The nature of source is important. The nature of this material world is important because, when we have this grip of fear around, I'm getting older, I've lost my youth. But when we have the knowledge of, well, that's just the natural cycle of human life, is that we go from birth to living to aging and to decaying and to death. That's just a natural cycle of things. There's nothing wrong with that. It helps to dissolve that grip of fear that is over us. We have more knowledge and we embrace that knowledge. Okay? So how do we practice this? Studying areas where fear lives in your life. Money, relationships, mortality, and try to seek wisdom there. Right? These are, I think, really prominent places where we all have a lot of fear. Money, relationships, and mortality. These things come and go. They are waves of energy that are moving through our human experience, but they're not the real, authentic, everlasting truth. They're temporary things. And when we can embrace that knowledge, we spend less time in fear of losing them, because our knowledge is that these things have a beginning and a middle and an end. They just do. And that allows us to sort of undo that grip of fear that we have around losing it, when we know that that's a natural part of the human cycle. So how you can apply this is maybe write down one fear that you hold and research wisdom traditions or practices that address it. Might be insightful for you, and like, how do I not have so much fear around this? I know for me, the yogic teachings have helped me release a lot of fear in my life around many, many things. And so there are many ancient wisdom traditions that are going to have knowledge for you around the places that you have fear. So I encourage you, write down your fear, one fear at least that you hold, and research what other wisdom traditions say. And what are their practices to addressing it? And then do the experiment by just doing the practices and see what happens. Okay, Point number 4. Knowledge guides right action. This is really, really, really important. Knowledge guides right action. And I don't mean the right action like what society tells you is right, but right action from your place of alignment, from your place of integrity, from your place of values. This is important because information without application is incomplete. Information without application is incomplete. But knowledge shapes how we live dharmically in our lives. When we have knowledge of, this is a spirit soul, and I want to honor that spirit soul and not just see the human, and so I'm going to judge less. That shapes how I'm living dharmically, how I'm living more in alignment with my true self. Here's how you can apply this teaching. Before making decisions, I want you to ask yourself, what do I know to be true here? How can I act from that truth? Now, often we act from our lower natured self, those lower levels of human consciousness. But when we ask ourselves, what do I know to be true here? How can I act from that truth? We're using our higher consciousness to observe, to contemplate, to assess, to be aware, to take in the truth of the moment, also taking in the grander truth of existence. And how can I act from that truth? I've had many situations in my life where I definitely have that lower self reaction where I want to do a certain thing to react to it, but I have to ask myself, how would my higher self show up here? What does my higher self know about this situation that my lower self is, conveniently leaving out? Okay, so here's how you can apply this. Use journaling to reflect on one daily decision. Did I act from wisdom or impulse? Simple question. Did I act from wisdom or did I act from impulse? Point number 5. There is growth through learning. Lifelong purification. This is the yogic journey. It's a lifelong purification process. And we purify and we grow through learning, having deeper understanding of the self. We want to both understand the human self, the nature of the human self, the mind, the ego, the intellect, the different departments of the mind. We want to understand our emotions and how they have an impact on us. We want to understand and know what keeps the human body most healthy and vibrant and alive. And yoga has a plethora of teachings with all this information. And, Sankhya Yoga and Ayurveda, great places to start. And understanding source and who that source is for you and your relationship with that source, your relationship with the material world. All of this gives us a better understanding when we learn these things so that we can navigate our life differently. So learning isn't just about school. It's a continuous process of refining the self, the true self with a capital S, as well as your human self. Each lesson is an opportunity to cleanse our ignorance or our not knowing. We don't know that we don't have boundaries until we're uncomfortable because somebody has crossed a boundary. And so when we learn about boundaries, we gain knowledge about boundaries. Every lesson is an opportunity to get more clarity around that boundary and more strength and courage around enacting that boundary. Okay, so how can we practice this? Approach life as a student. See every experience as a teacher. There's always a lesson in everything that we are experiencing, both in our successes and in our failures, both in things that we enjoy and that we don't enjoy. There's always, every experience is a teacher. So see if you can glean the lessons from each moment of your life. You can do this by, at the end of your day, ask yourself, what did today teach me? This is a really powerful question. What did today teach me? What did I learn about myself? What did I learn about others? What did I learn about the world? What did today teach me? So essentially, we're talking about a lifelong study of sacred text and personal development. Learning is a spiritual practice, not just an academic path. I want you to maybe take some time to journal today. What knowledge do I need right now to purify and elevate my life? It's a great question. What knowledge do I need right now to purify and elevate my life? Where does ignorance keep me stuck? And what new wisdom do I feel called to study? You might even ask, how has learning changed me in the past? Right? Think about your past and when you learned something. Like, I remember when I was in high school and I first started studying Buddhism, completely changed my life and the way I moved through the world. And what knowledge do I resist and why? And how can I integrate learning into my daily practice? Just some questions to think about. And I want to encourage you that every lesson you learn is a step closer to freedom. Every lesson that you are learning, no matter how hard and how messy or how difficult they may be, every lesson that you learn is a step closer to freedom. I'd love to invite you to a workshop that I will be hosting at the end of November called The 4 Aims of Yoga. It's based on the teachings of Purushartha, which is a traditional teaching in the Advaita Vedanta tradition, around the 4 aims of yoga and how these things bring more harmony into our lives. So you have a great opportunity to acquire some knowledge that can help you navigate your life experience in a way that will lead to it being more harmonious. Doesn't mean it won't be without challenge or without struggle, but you'll feel more harmonious, you'll feel more in alignment, you'll feel more purposeful. So that'll be November 29th here in Long Beach at Yogalution Movement. You can check out our website, yogalutionmovement.com, for more information and to sign up for this afternoon immersion. It's about a 5-hour workshop. There'll be a yoga class, a light Ayurvedic meal, and then we'll dive into the philosophy that I'll be teaching. Also, I'd love for you to read our new blog post over at the studio website, yogalutionmovement.com. I just wrote a whole blog article about this very topic. So if you'd like to take more time to digest this information, you enjoy reading blogs, you want to go back to it for reference, head to our website. I'll put the link below for the specific place that the blog exists on the website, but you just click the blog tab and you'll find the blog article there. Now, in closing, I want you to remember that knowledge isn't just power, it is purification. It purifies our consciousness, it purifies our awareness, it purifies our perception. Knowledge is a purifier. Please, please acquire knowledge, purify the mind, purify your perception, purify your worldview, purify the way that you see yourself in this world, and I promise you that grip that fear has on you is going to lessen more and more, and you will truly feel more freedom as you are navigating this human experience. All right, my friends, thank you so much for watching. If you're still here, I would love it if you hit the like button. If you would like to subscribe, you can hit the subscribe button. It helps get this video farther out into the algorithm so that more people can discover this beautiful and powerful knowledge that yogic wisdom has to offer us. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What stuck out at you the most? What hit you the hardest? What question did you find most profound? And as always, if you would like a deeper dive into a journal prompt for this Monday message, you're going to have to go over to my Empowered Living community. That's where those PDFs live. Become a member of that community. It's completely free. I'll leave the link down below. And on that free community platform, I also am doing a lot of free online workshops. And there's a lot of other assets there that will help you in your spiritual development and your personal development. So once again, I am so honored to be here with you. Happy Monday. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Remember to keep that head held high and that heart open wide. So much love from my heart to yours. Namaste, my friends.